Can you travel to Albania with diabetes? Of course. It's still an out-of-the-way destination for travelers, but there's a lot to see and do, and everything you need will be available, eventually. Be smart and be careful, and diabetes won't stop you. Hi, I'm still Jeremy. This is my personal blood sugar report from 5 days in Albania. My travel partner and I entered Albania by bus from Macedonia, going through the misty mountains of eastern Albania to the capital, Tiranë, and then to the town of Shkodër. Over the 5 days, I checked my blood sugar 21 times. The readings were from 54 to 288, and the average was 165. Now, those numbers might not seem super fantastic, but if you've seen my other videos from before on this trip, then you'll know that to have no readings over 300 is quite an improvement over other countries like Serbia and Croatia. Somehow, in Albania, things had just started to work. I mean, as an example, look at the first night in Tiranë, down George W. Bush Road. I love that the word for road in Albanian is rruga. Who doesn't love a word that begins with a double R? We found a pizza place, with its own washing machine for some reason, and we ate it in the room. The pizza, not the washing machine. And I had a beer. Takeout pizza is often our go-to meal when we don't feel like tracking down a real restaurant, and it's usually destroyed my blood sugar. But here in Albania, I was 131 afterwards. The next morning, still okay, 159, no pizza spike. Breakfast had also been difficult for me, but after the buffet-style one in our small hotel, I was 133 before lunch. We walked around Tiranë to get a sense of the place. A thin little waterway flowed outside our hotel, beside colorful buildings, painted in an effort to bring some color to the place after decades of isolationism. There are lots of unique things to gawk at in Tiranë, both grand, like the town square with its murals, statues, and clock tower, and the purely odd, like the disused pyramid. It was once a cultural center and then a NATO base, and now it's crumbling and covered in graffiti, with shattered windows and an unnerving sense of decay. You can't get in, but it is a good place to hang out mysteriously under a tree in the rain and think things over. Or how about the statues from Albania's communist past, now broken and dismembered and lined up in a weed-covered courtyard behind a small building? And where have I seen this before? Oh yeah. On the way, I stopped in at a pharmacy where they had some one-touch strips, with Albanian on the package. The exotic delights of traveling with diabetes. The pharmacist also gave me some free pin needles. I still had enough insulin, but I asked her what kinds they stocked, and she said Novolog and Levemir plus 70/30. At the time, I was using Humalog and Lantus, and it was nice to know that if I needed some, I could get something reasonably close in a pinch in Albania. Now, just to demonstrate how behaved my blood sugar was being, consider this story. For lunch, we went to a cafe, and I had a sandwich thing. I guessed I needed about 5 units of Humalog, but I only took 2, since I knew we'd be walking around a lot. But a simple stroll in the rain isn't a blood sugar killer, and back in the hotel later, I was 288. Should have taken that regular dose. Hey, as long as it's predictable. And even better, dinner was fried Italian seafood and salad, which was 1 shot, and then afterwards a dessert of local beer and a piece of chocolate cake, which was another shot. Add all this up, and the result before bed was 136. Next morning, 139. Isn't life fun when diabetes behaves itself? It was after stopping into the local Sheraton Hotel to see a huge portrait of Leonardo da Vinci made out of little screws that I got my first low, 54. And that was after a lunch full of French fries, which I usually avoid. A second pizza and beer dinner was still manageable that night, but staying up to watch the Super Bowl live, which began at 12:30 a.m. local time, destroyed my sleep and complicated things the whole next day. We took a minibus through the dingy, rainy countryside, past miles and miles of huge furniture stores and little else, to the town of Shkodër. Hail was falling when we arrived, and that portended bad things for my blood sugar. Sometimes you just go through a rough patch and you don't know why. In Shkodër, I was 205, and then after some burek and baklava, 225. I finally got it under 200, but it was a hard slog. It must have been the Super Bowl. Things were better the next day, thanks to exercise. As Tom and Jerry ran around on the Albanian television in our hotel dining area, our breakfast was full, but not overly so, just right. Afterwards, we rode a pair of hotel bikes, replete with the reminders of yesterday's stormy weather, through the streets of Shkodër, past perfume vendors and bird enthusiasts, and, of course, some other interesting forms of transportation. No, not the cars. Yeah, that. Our destination was the majestic Rozafa Castle on a big hill outside town. After pushing up the steep approach road and meeting some of the local residents, I was 144. Rozafa Castle is an ancient site, now ruins, on a very strategic spot. You're between two rivers, looking out over Shkodër and the countryside towards the so-called Albanian Alps. The ruins themselves are very enveloping, made of dark gray bricks and still holding much of their original shapes. We stopped in at the only facilities up on the hill, a characterful cafe and a dark stone room. The server, for some reason, spoke to us in German and served Turkish coffee. To us, an American person and a Japanese person, here in Albania, pondering our impending trip to Montenegro. This is why you travel. But all the clambering around the stones, sneaking up on the sheep, and especially biking up the hill had made me low, the second 54 of Albania. I had a Mars bar and we biked back to town, seeing some of its quirky touches and parks and monuments, and finally stopping in at a cafe for a snack. The cookie I ordered was doused in honey. That's an awfully hard thing to calculate insulin for, and I didn't do very well, 255 afterwards. Maybe the power, which had gone out in the hotel for a while, should have stayed out. If you can't see your blood sugar meter, it doesn't count. But if you're 93 before bed, yeah, that counts. And if you think that's too low, eat some of the rain slugs in your bathroom. The final blood sugar reading in Albania at the breakfast table was a cool 111. So overall, really, except for a couple of instances of overthinking the supposed exercise I was getting, and one day in which my blood sugar was just being a jerk all day, things were quite good in Albania. And so we found our bus out of Shkodër and through the hills north, out of Albania. As the only other passengers, a few old men who all seemed to know each other, sat up front chatting and listening to Jay-Z, believe it or not. The two of us admired the Japanese characters on the seat covers and said goodbye to Albania and hello to a place just as mysterious to us, Montenegro. I hope this video inspired you not only to keep trying to have good blood sugars even when it seems like things aren't going your way, but also to think about visiting Albania or whatever place you've always wondered about but haven't gone yet. You'll be glad you did. Thanks for watching. Next is Montenegro, where blood sugars go up a bit from Albania but in really amazing settings. Check out my other videos for travel tips, stories from my own travels, and my experiences as a type 1 diabetic wanderer. See you on the road.